Hello, this is Shireen Smith of the Legally Branded Show, and today I want to discuss how to increase the value of your business without increasing turnover. You see, building your business's intellectual capital is the way to increase the value of a business nowadays, because it's the intangible assets that account for most of the value of corporates, as much as 70 to 80%. It's not the tangible machines, your buildings or other hard assets that create value. I'll be coming back to this theme again and again in future episodes, because I see some entrepreneurs dealing with their IP registrations and general IP issues with minimal background or understanding of intellectual property. It's sort of become a routine to register a trademark without really knowing what people are doing. And I often think of asking people if they would deal with their own physical property transactions with so little background and understanding of that transaction. So it's really important to note that intellectual property is property and therefore needs careful handling. This is why you're in business, after all, to build value. There are courses like Legally Branded Academy, which is suitable for entrepreneurs and startups. So if you haven't already taken the time to fully understand IP, I highly recommend signing up to that program. It's not expensive, and it's a business course suitable for a worldwide audience. So, intangible assets. Now, the intangible assets are what comprise a company's intellectual capital. Pay attention to the various components of intellectual capital if you want to increase the value of your business, because focusing on turnover is not necessarily the way to increase the multiple that your business might achieve on exit. You see, contrary to popular belief, the traditional methods of valuing a business that are used by accountants, namely earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, EBITDA, with its focus on increasing revenues, is not always the yardstick by which your business will be valued. Now, in reality, there is no single formula for valuing a company on exit that can be used to precisely value every private business. It's just not the way it works. You see, the seller will want to drive the price up naturally, and potential buyers will want to do the opposite naturally. So although there are relatively easy ways to value certain parts of the business, such as the stock or fixed assets, land, machinery, equipment, and so on, there will very probably be sizable intangible elements to the value of a business. Now, intangible elements would include goodwill or the brand, actually, as it's more commonly known. This would comprise the trademarks, the reputation of the company, and other intellectual property such as copyrights, potentially designs. So such assets are notoriously difficult to value, and in many cases the value will come down to how keen a potential buyer is to acquire your business. If there is a strategic fit and ideally a little competition from another potential buyer in the wings, then a buyer may well be willing to pay a significant premium to acquire your business. I would recommend planning your exit strategy very carefully. Start by getting the nuts and bolts of your business sorted. Here, I'm thinking of your intellectual property. This is sensible to address sooner rather than later, so that there's plenty of time to iron out any issues that may arise later. What you don't want is for such intellectual property issues to spoil your negotiations during a potential sale. Do bear in mind that some IP issues can take a few years to resolve, so get ready now. Whatever stage your business is at, and particularly if you're at a growth stage or thinking about exit already, you will be focused on adding value to your business. And so don't leave IP till later. You can't look at it soon enough. It will be used as an excuse to devalue the business, so deal with it really, really soon. Now, some examples of sales that haven't depended on turnover. There's Instagram. It was a company which was acquired for a sum well beyond its market value at the time. Facebook reportedly acquired Instagram in April 2012 for $1 billion because Instagram already had a built-in user base which Facebook's own planned photo sharing app lacked. By purchasing Instagram, Facebook acquired a foothold in the photo sharing market and at the same time squashed a threat to its own dominance in photo sharing. So essentially, the valuation was based on Instagram's intangible assets, namely its goodwill and intellectual property, and its strategic fit for Facebook really was the key to driving that value up. Similarly, Facebook's acquisition of WhatsApp for $21.8 billion was largely driven by the large user base that WhatsApp enjoyed. The purchase price achieved was really also a high one, as Facebook was competing with Google to purchase the company. So really these examples demonstrate that synergies within businesses can result in a valuation which is far higher than the company turnover or traditional methods of valuation might have you believe that the company is worth. There's an element of the qualitative rather than the quantitative when assessing a company's sale prospects. And if there is a competitive bid, as in the WhatsApp scenario, this tends to push the valuation even higher. So strategic protection of your intellectual property and goodwill is fundamentally important, whatever the basis of the valuation. It's best to secure your IP protection sooner rather than later, as IP is the foundation of your business. It can make the difference between a successful sale and a potential buyer or investor actually walking away. So, your IP real estate, so to speak. Maybe you're a local business serving a loyal customer base, or you're not in the technology space, but rather you're selling goods and services. So you may think all these stories don't apply to you. It's true that the above examples of a strong valuation, not based on turnover, do involve technology companies, but most companies now interface with technology at some point, and also it's all about the strategic fit between who wants to buy you and you. So we're living at a time when any company, even a small business, could increase its value by focusing on its intellectual capital, things like the team, your knowledge, your processes and systems. You know, be savvy about how to increase value. And, you know, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to get the foundation of your business sorted with IP. Perhaps yours is a business where the online dimension, if correctly dealt with, can lead to a huge valuation. For example, Skyscanner, which is a global online meta search engine that enables people to find comparisons for flights. This was founded in Scotland in 2001 by 3 IT professionals. Following various rounds of investment and expansion over the years, and with 50 million monthly users, it has recently been sold to the Chinese travel agent. I can't remember their name, but I'll write it down later. A large proportion of its valuation on exit will have been attributable to its intangible assets, namely its brand, its goodwill, and effective algorithms. That's why the website has become so successful. So as the web and technology become more and more important in our lives, it means that intellectual property is a critical area to upskill yourself in, so that you can be sure to take the basic steps that you need to take on an ongoing basis to ensure that your assets are secured. So basically, get legally branded to understand the issues to focus on for your business. It could save you a lot of money and put you in a better place to manage projects. So let's look at what is intellectual capital, because people often wonder, well, what's the difference between intellectual property and intellectual capital? Intellectual capital is the wider term that is something I will discuss a lot in future shows. But essentially, it can be broken down into 4 categories. There's the human element, you know, in your business. There's customers. Then there's the structural element of the business. And then there's social capital. Now, the human element comprises your knowledge assets, such as the talent, skills, know-how, know what, and relationships that you have, and the networks that embody them, you know, your networks that you can go to if you need to do something. They are all potentially creating wealth. Nowadays, 70% of businesses are in the knowledge services sector. So knowledge is the most valuable asset of the business. Managing the intellectual assets has become a business's most important task. So use intellectual property to increase your valuation. Now, the brand is the most important asset of your business to develop. Having a legally effective, legally available name and then building that brand is key. So look at the fundamentals, and if there's something wrong with your name, then rebrand while there's still time to build up name recognition with a new brand name. You know, if you might potentially have to rebrand down the line, much better to do it voluntarily, because you can then redirect your previous traffic. So by consistently promoting the values that you'll be able, you'll be able to attract the human capital that's essential for you to have in the business in order to increase your knowledge. And also it's the measure by which your team will be assessed. Having strong, developed talent will help place a business in a higher value, because basically, among other things, it will make it more likely that the business doesn't depend on you and only you to be successful. that increases its value if the knowledge is within a whole team. So developing assets that can support you to be less indispensable to your business is key. Having well-considered processes in place that increase your efficiency, reduce the scope for mistakes, that takes in information that you need at certain junctures, like when clients come on board. This will all serve to enhance the value of your intellectual property. Getting the right people on your team before you start down the path of your growth gives you both the necessary human capital to improve your direction and also the approach that you're going to take. So, customer capital. Now, strong customer capital is a measure of a company's relationship with its customers. Again, your brand and how well you look after your customers is the measure of the strength of your relationships with customers. Nowadays, the aim is to try to create deep, long-term relationships. In the Culting of Brands by Douglas Atkin, it mentions how the aim of a really successful business is to create a cult-like following among its customers. So, for example, it's becoming common to create Facebook groups to deliver additional value to customers and a sense of common culture and interests. And sometimes people just stay because of that group. So the relationships, are they delivered in a consistent, reliable, recurring fashion? Are you sort of integral to your customers' success because the products and services you offer are unique? Most of all, are these relationships transferable should you sell the business to a new party? Will they be able to just take over? The customer is of central importance, as is getting a clear picture of that customer. In fact, how the business interacts with customers is more important than what it sells. The aim is no less than to make your relationships so entangled with your customers that they can't live without you. Now, that's a tall order, but that is what to aspire for. Now, structural capital is the business's infrastructure. It comprises systems and tools that form the basis of how you add value to customers, and the tools with which your team work, like your systems, your IT systems, and on which your company is built. The purpose of the structural capital is to take what exists inside your brain and turn it into a transferable form. These are your best practices that can be purchased and repurposed. The second purpose of your structural capital is to capture the knowledge assets in the company, converting that mental process into company property and making it transferable. So what this enables your team to do is the things that make them so special then becomes part of your assets. It allows them to meet and exceed customer expectations because they've got good processes, and enables them to build and sustain lasting, recurring relationships because you've shown them how to do it. So the knowledge needs to be documented and transferable such that someone else can learn from you and apply it. Making this knowledge company, part of your company property is what ensures that when your talent walks out of the door at night, the knowledge they have doesn't walk out of the door with them. This is really key, and AI is actually going to make it even easier for companies to do this. Social capital, finally, and probably most importantly in today's tech-connected world, is social media. Represents your culture, your brand, the way your team works, the rhythm of the day-to-day operations and communications, and the way you interact with customers. Positive social media can go a long way, but also beware of negative social media. Keep a watch on what's going on. But having that positive media will help. When you've built and packaged your intellectual capital, your business has replaced you, which is a good thing. In other words, you're no longer indispensable. Then it's not about you anymore. Your business now has a life of its own. It becomes the project versus the products or services you sell. So you work on the business, not in the business, as the E-Myth says. So in conclusion, if you're looking for ways to improve your business value, consider developing your systems and processes rather than just focusing on increasing sales and other revenue generating activities. If you found this episode useful, do subscribe to the show and leave a comment or review. I'd be very grateful. Thank you.